Hey there everybody, this is Barry Zundell from Trapdoor Creative. We're excited to announce the launch of Stage Alpha today and excited to get it in everybody's hands. I wanted to run through it really quick so you can see how to log on and then how to use it. And so I'll take you through that here really quick. So the first thing you do is after you install it is you'll double click the icon and it brings up Stage and it's going to ask you to log in. Now this login is what you used, the email address is what you used to to sign up for the alpha. So let's say mine is Barry at trapdoorcreative.com and I'll put in my password. And for everybody on there, your password is Stage Alpha, and I'll send this out in the email, but Stage Alpha with a capital S, capital A, 2020. So if you use that as your password, you'll be able to log in. So I'm going to say remember me, and then I'm going to say log in. And now you'll be in Stage. And inside of Stage, you'll be in a startup scene, and this is just a bright scene. And if you click and drag in the window, you'll notice it will rotate the scene around. Now there's a couple things that you should be aware of. Your menu is up here in the left-hand corner as normal. Here's kind of some explanations about how to move around. It's very simple. It's left click drag to orbit, middle mouse push down to pan, and then you can scroll to zoom, and then you can also bound zoom by holding your right mouse button down. Now it's going to throw me into something because I'm not focused on anything here. I'll just zoom out here, but once I get an object in there it'll be easier to see. But anyways, so that's kind of how to navigate around the space. So let's import a model. So I'm going to go up to here and say import from, and you can import an FBX, a GLTF, or an OBJ. I'm going to grab a GLTF file and import it. So I'm going to grab it. Okay, so I've navigated to my GLTF file and I'm going to grab it and I'm going to hit open, and then it'll take just a second to open this. While it opens it, you'll notice here I have my scene, or my light right in my scene. And one thing you'll notice, and this is probably a little bug right now, is that it comes in a little bit big. We're fixing this, we're aware of it right now, but I wanted to get it in people's hands anyways. So I'm just going to shrink it to about 2%. I do that by clicking on the model and then changing the model attributes right here. The other thing I'm going to do is just put 0 centimeters so that it's right where it needs to be. Now this was built on an avatar, and so there should be, feet to the ground here, but that's why it's floating. But your model, whatever model you have, should come in on the ground if you've built it that way, or fitting within the bounds box that we have here for Alpha or for Stage. So I've got my model here. I can change the elevation, like I said, on it. I can move it up and down in the scene. I can rotate it, and I can scale. And it goes pretty quick. We're actually fixing this right now. But so what you can do is just click the model at any time and it will show those properties. Okay. The next thing that we want to do is we want to change the scene. So I'm going to go down to Scene and I'm going to change to Dark Studio. You'll notice there's no lights in this studio. And then you'll also notice if I go to Scene and I go to HDR Beach, I'm on this beach and I can tumble around. Now one thing that you'll notice, and once again we have this is a fix coming in, is that it rescales your object when you switch scenes. So I'm just going to go back to 2% right there and then set this as 0. Just delete. Okay, just like that. Okay, and then I can just navigate around and I can tumble around. So I'm going to go back to the Dark Studio. And what you'll notice, see how the scale is set back to 3.1. I'm just going to go back to 2. There's no lights in this scene, and that's because you want to add some presets. So you go to lighting and you pick a preset where there's butterfly, warm, cool, or harsh front. And so I'm just going to pick butterfly, and you'll notice here, you'll notice that I have this butterfly lighting, or what can be called butterfly lighting, and I'm seeing the lights right now. And if I hit L, you'll notice it shows and hides the lights. That's so that you can see the lights and where they're set up, and you can also hide them for rendering. Now, in this initial version, you're not able to play with the lights or create lights or edit them. You'll just have presets. But in future versions, especially in the Pro version when we launch for real, you'll be able to create lights, spotlights, softboxes, other lights and change their color and their intensity and their direction and all that kind of stuff. So for this one right now, just open your model and then open up the lighting setup. So here's like a warm, cool, and these all we can change. So as people say, oh, I'd really like this one, or I'd like to change this one, we can make adjustments to these. So this is a harsh front. So these are lighting setups that you just have so that you can set up your object. We can click on it and rotate it to where we want. Okay. And so there's also animations that are available. Now these, we're actually changing the way we do these. You can test them out for right now, but if I go to animation and I go to rotate up, it's going to start from the bottom, and I just hit the space bar, and then it's going to rotate from the bottom of the object and go up to the top, kind of like this. Okay, and it's just going to repeat. I can hit Control L and it will stop looping, and then I can just hit the space bar again and it plays again. But I can play that one. I can also do a push in and up, so I'll just hit the space bar and it zooms in and kind of goes up like this. Okay, and then I can also do a side pan, so it's going to kind of do the same thing where it kind of slides up the model, pans up the model like that. Okay, at any time I can just hit the space bar and I can tumble right out of it. Now one thing that you can do in here too is you can change the camera. You can play with the camera a bunch. So if you hit C, go to the menu and you'll see it, camera settings right here, C. If I hit the camera settings, you'll notice a panel come up and it gives you all these camera settings. Now, what you're doing when you grab and drag or you pan around or anything like that, you're just moving a lot of these with your mouse. But I can also just do it with the mouse. So I can change my view angle like this. I can change my pitch based on the center of my view. I can also change the height, so I can pan like this. And I can also change the focal length. So I can say, let's say I want a 50mm lens. Well, I can just type in 50. And it zooms into 50, and then I can change my distance by scrolling and moving around. So say I want to move back, I can still have that 50mm lens. Now if I want to fit the object to the screen, I just hit F and it fits it to the screen, or I can click the button right here on the camera panel. The other thing that's really nice about this is we have some finer camera controls where we have focal offset, and we also have an aperture for the lens. So let's say I want to come in here and I want to get a good shot here. Right now the focal offset is set to 24, 25, or negative 25 centimeters, so it's focused kind of right here on the shirt. But if I want to focus, let's say over on the neck over here, I can uncheck auto, and I can move that focal offset. Now what auto is doing is it's just picking the center of the screen and saying, okay, that's where I want to focus. And so that's what it's getting focused. And you can see that anything within the plane of that central point is getting focused. If I turn off auto and I change focal offset, I can actually move that offset towards me or away from me. So let's say it's right at the neckline right there. So it's right here. Now what I can also do is change the aperture. So the aperture on my lens is 1.7 right now, which is pretty short, pretty small, and I can take it down even further if I want greater depth of field. Or I can pull it up if I want less depth of field. So I can play with the aperture based on what I want the depth of field to be. Okay. At any given time I can click auto and it will start to refocus that, so as I move around it focuses on whatever's in the middle of the screen. So that way you can play with all the camera controls. Now, if you have an NVIDIA RTX card and Stage recognizes that, you'll have a graphics panel, which is G. So this graphics panel, if it's not in your menu, it usually means that you don't have a card that supports RTX. We're still working that out, how to recognize all cards that have RTX. A lot of it is based on the driver, but if you can do ray tracing, this should show up. So if I click on that, it now allows me to pick what ray traced items I want. So if I want ray traced global illumination off, I don't need that anymore. So now there's no light bouncing around the scene. The only thing it's kind of doing a scene capture and then kind of projecting that onto the model. So it kind of looks like it, but it's really just faked. The other thing is ambient occlusion. If I take that off, you don't get the really accurate ambient occlusion in the folds and in the crevices and things like that, like you would if with it on. I can turn off reflections, and I can also turn off shadows. And if you notice, when you turn off shadows, you get kind of a lot harsher shadows. And we're working on more ways to make the non-RTX rendering much more like the RTX rendering. So for right now, it's pretty harsh. But if I turn on shadows, you can see what happens. I get really nice soft lighting, and then ambient occlusion and global illumination. You can start to see it really bounce around the scene. So you can turn those on and off, and you can turn to speed things up. If things get really chuggy for you, a lot of times if you turn off global illumination, you still get a lot of that really good looking ambient occlusion and shadows and everything, but it speeds up dramatically. So I'm going to go back to global illumination here. So now that I've seen all the ray tracing and the cards and the animation and the lighting, now I want to render something. So let's go to lighting and click none. And then I'm going to go to a scene. I'm going to go to HDR beach. And what I've got now is I've got this scene where it's all being lit by an HDR image. Okay? And let's say I want to take a shot of this on the beach in my HDR scene right here. Okay, maybe get a little bit of some lens flare in there. Just a little bit, make it look like that. And I want to take a render. Now what I can do is just go up to, say, render image. It's going to ask me where I want to save that image. I just say what it is, and I say save. And you are done. And that image now is saved wherever you told it to. It's in 4K, so it's 3840 by 2160. And really quick, that fast, you have a render of your shot. So I can then come in here and I can go, okay, I want to do another, I want to do another render. Well, that shows you how detailed this can get, like that. But let's do a render right here. So let's get a render just like this. So I'm just going to go up there, render image. We'll do it again. Save, and the render's done. Maybe one over here, and if you rename, obviously if you're naming them different, they're not gonna save over the top, but I'm just showing you how fast you can do this. And then I go render image and pick, name my image and say save. Yep, there we go, and it's done. And so you can just sit there and do all kinds of stills and all kinds of renders really fast, really quickly, using this method and using Stage. So that's really all the tools that that you'll be using in Stage for right now. Like I said, we have a lot of other features for customizing animations and customizing lights, customizing HDR, but those will be coming in later builds. So we're excited to have you just test out the foundations of importing your model, rotating your model around, making sure the textures are coming in right, looking at the different scenes, adding some presets, and doing some renders. And we hope that as you do that, you'll engage on the Facebook page and give us some feedback of what's working for you, what's not working for you. You can also email anytime at stagebugs@stage3d.app. You can email questions or anything to that email, and we'll get right on them for you and answer right back. But we'd love to engage with you on the Facebook page. So if you need to know where that is, just search on Facebook for Stage 3D community, and you should be good to go. So we're excited to have everybody on board. Hope you have a great time in Stage, and let us know if you're having any problems. Thanks a lot.